Verse 5 reads, "Does he who supplies the Spirit to you and works miracles among you do so by the works of the law or by hearing with faith?" So it sounds very similar to what we just read in verses 2 and 3, and it ought to be, because I say in my comments, quote, "I think that this verse, again, is a restating of the previous round of rhetorical questioning." Now, it's not exactly the same. Paul's not just wasting parchment. I know there are some probably more detailed reasons as to why he uses the words he does now, but overall, generally speaking, I think he's restating the same position. And so I didn't really get too detailed into my commentary as to what the nuances are, the differences between the three verses. But I do say it this way. Obviously, by now, we know that Paul is not in favor of ethnic-driven righteousness. That's a position that's maintained by his detractors. The evidence that the Galatians are already in possession of genuine and lasting covenant status is the fact, and Paul states this, I think that's why he brings this up, the evidence that they already are in possession of genuine and lasting covenant status is the fact that the Ruach HaKodesh is indeed working among them. They are a genuine people of God. They've already been brought into covenant status via their genuine faith in Yeshua. Now, Paul can't possibly know that every single believer or every single member in Galatia was a true believer. No pastor has that insight. That's truly solely only the job of the Holy Spirit. Only the Holy Spirit knows who is genuine and who's not. But we can, as pastors, as leaders of our community, assess the general congregation. We are commanded to examine fruit. We are commanded to look at trees, which is a metaphor for people. We are commanded to look at our members and to know them, or at least seek to know their spiritual state of being, seek to understand if they are genuine or not, and seek to assist when they aren't genuine. You know, sometimes people deceive themselves. Sometimes they know that they're not genuine believers and they're just trying to deceive other people. But sometimes they are self-deceived. You understand what I'm saying? So Paul knows that the Spirit is working among them as a group, and we also know that the Spirit works among a group even though everyone in the group is not a believer. That's my whole point. Recall Peter's surprise, I say, when the Ruach HaKodesh fell freely on Cornelius and company in Acts 10, verses 44 through 48. Now we could stop and ask ourselves a question. Why was Peter, a Jew, surprised? Well, the book of Acts actually tells us, if we were to go back and read that passage, so I'll just give you the answer right here in my commentary. The reason why Peter was surprised is because the long-standing belief among the Judaisms of the first century sincerely assumed that God only chose Jews as covenant partners. And we're going to read about this Jewish-only covenant membership from some other documents. That's why I'm trying to hurry through this part of my commentary. So that's why Peter, a Jew, was surprised that the Holy Spirit, the Spirit of holiness, was being poured out among Gentiles who had not yet undergone any conversion rite whatsoever. They were still bona fide Gentiles. And yet the Spirit of God was demonstrating their sincere covenant membership and their sincere faith in Yeshua by working among them. It's kind of the same concept that's going on in the book of Galatians that Paul's using. So Paul here, I say, is acknowledging the genuine work of the Spirit among his fellow Gentiles as proof positive that they were already existing covenant members and not merely Gentile to Jewish converts, quote unquote. Right? They weren't just Jewish wannabes who were in the process of becoming covenant members like the influencers were saying they were. The influencers. So the final thing I'd like to say for my part, and then we'll turn to some other resources, is the question I think that Paul poses where he says in verse 5, does he who supplies the Spirit to you and works miracles among you, does he do so by the works of the law or by hearing with faith? I think the question is meant to raise the issue in the minds of the Galatians as to what exactly attracts the attention of God himself. And is it flesh that God is attracted to, i.e. ethnic status, Jewish membership, things like that? Or is it faith in God's chosen Messiah. Which one of these is going to propel God to pronounce the verdict of dikaiosune, which is the noun version of the word righteous? Which one is going to have God bring the gavel down to declare a person righteous? And in order for Paul to answer the question, the answer is going to be given below using Abraham as the paradigm. Paul's going to turn to Abraham in Galatians chapter 3. He's going to prove to the Galatians that Abraham has already demonstrated the true path of true righteousness. And contrary to what the influencers were believing about Abraham, it was not because Abraham was a Jew. Rather, it was through something else. So we'll dive into that next week.